for right now, I'm just creating a GitHub repository so I can push the ice cream shop code up to it, and then you can reference it if you need for your project. And since I'm here anyway, if you want to hang around with me for a bit, let's do this together. So I've logged into my GitHub repository. I'm going to create a new repository. Now remember, the goal is that all the code is here. And we did this on Friday. There was one little bit at the end that didn't work, and then just after class I remembered it. I actually remember taking that stuff out in an earlier class because I wanted the students to put it back in as an exercise. So you just had to put those import statements in a couple of files. This file is totally complete, totally ready to go, totally ready to be the template for your project, right, for your e-commerce web store. So the way the project is going to work is as follows. So you go ahead and log into it, right? You get it started, and you could have run your seed program. So you could have run the seed program to initialize some data in your Mongo database. There it is. So that's, you know, your back end of the, and the ice cream shop is totally, I mean, like 98%, it's the project. So you could just take this and mutate it around a little bit, right? Take some of your schemas and so on and just change them. So anyway, there we are, the ice cream shop. And then we've gone ahead, we've run the seed program to initialize some data. And then we went and ran server.js. Right, so you just went ahead and ran your server file. And then once you run that, you're going to get into your app on port 3000. And it's going to look like this. This is the code we did together on Friday, with the exception of that little, whoops, I guess I turned it off here. Oh, because I forgot to hit enter to run it. Let's try that again. Yeah, so now, yeah, so there, because I was talking, not paying attention to what I was doing. So now, we run it, now there it is. So those are your various routes, and we can create a customer. Who's a good customer to create here? Go with the Star Trek theme, Captain Sisko, Deep Space Nine. And there we can verify with our Mongo Compass that that actually got created. Yeah, there's Captain Sisko. And similarly now, once we've done that, we can create another product. You can tell I haven't had supper yet. And once again, you can verify that over here. Deep chocolate space ice cream with cherries. And now the core concept here, so that's, that's something we've done several times. Now we want to make an order which combines a customer to a product. So you can study through the code as we did in class. You can make a new order, and then this is going in the form, it's doing a read, so it's getting whatever is currently in the JSON database. So there's Captain Sisko, and his product is Space Ice Cream, and he wants to maybe buy for the whole crew, so I'll buy 100, let's say. Not sure what the crew complement of Deep Space Nine is, but now we'll say create order, and there's the order up there. Now you could delete that order as well if you wanted to. Right, you can delete orders. I don't delete that order because that's a cool order. But anyway, that's how the whole thing works. So this demonstrates the code is working, and I'm now going to kick it up to you, and you can take that and just, study that and mutate that for your project. So anyway, I think we were back here somewhere. Oh yeah, we were setting up. So I was starting to say now that you go to GitHub, you create a new repo. So, well, you don't need to do any of this stuff, right? This is not for now. I might bring this into the Kotlin class next time. For right now, you can totally skip over this, right? I just wanted to show you the working ice cream shop. This is purely interest, right? If you want to sort of get into GitHub, then pay attention. Otherwise, you don't really need to see it right now. So I've made my new repo. So new repository. I'm going to call it the node ice cream shop. And that's pretty much. Oh, now git ignore, because remember we said that we don't want to post, right? We don't want to promote all of our node modules up to GitHub, because user can just go and do npm install express by themselves, and there's so many thousands of files, you just don't want to do that. So here, and I could make a README as well. Good practice, but I'll add the README later. Git ignore, I'm going to say use, and somebody else has already done this, right? Because Node is such a popular tool. If you just say you want to apply the git ignore rules for Node, there it is. And then license, I'm not talking about licensing in this class, it's pretty involved. I'll just go with MIT licensing because it looks cool. and URLs to convey information between client and server. Now there's a little trick you need to do to sync up your local file system with the GitHub server. Git is a protocol, just like HTTP is a protocol. Git is a protocol. GitHub is a server for that protocol, just like Apache Web Server is a server for HTML, HTTP. So just go ahead now. I'm going to put some content here. That's good enough for right now. And now I need to do something called getting a personal authentication token to work on my client end. Anybody who's interested in this, if you really need to see this and you really want to get into the DevOps and the GitHub, I'll set up an extra hour sometime, right? Like Saturday, Sunday, whatever. I'll volunteer a little bit of my time to run a separate class for it. But for right now, I have to go to settings. And I have to find the security thing. And here in settings, I have to go to developer settings. Now here I am in developer settings. So I'm going to go ahead and say personal authentication token. I don't know if you guys worked with GitHub earlier, even up until about last year. It was painfully difficult to sync up your local file system with GitHub server. You had to set up an SSH token, and it was unpleasant. We actually gave up running it in class just because it was so painstaking and 90% of students couldn't get it to work. But now with the new PAT token, it's so smooth and so frictionless. So let's go and get one. So we'll say personal authentication tokens. We'll go with classic for right now. And those are ones I have from other classes. So let's go and make a new one. Say generate new token. And I'll go with classic because it's a little easier to work with. You don't have to select as many options. And just give it any note now. And do not have spaces in any of your file names. At work, you should always have an expiration token for anything that matters. I'm just keeping it simple. Here, in terms of your scopes, just select the first 6 or so. We don't get it. This is very deep GitHub administration stuff. This is not, I mean, unless you're very deeply into DevOps stuff, you don't need all of these. But just go for right now, go ahead and select all of them. And should be good enough for now. Generate token. Now pay attention. So I'll say generate new token. Oh, actually, I've already done that. Sorry. So here's the token. You're only going to see this once. You're not going to see it again, so make sure you copy it, just like some of the API keys we were dealing with last week. I'll just drop that in a notepad right now, so you can actually go and bail out of this. You don't need to be here anymore. So now, how do I use this to push my local file system stuff up to GitHub? Let's see. So my local directory is this, and there's another cool thing I want to show you later, which is the use of the OS2 Warp terminal, which is a massive amplification. If you've ever worked with the command terminal, OS2 Warp terminal is the new way to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and open that. It's all free. It's basically an AI-assisted command shell. So I'm going to change to that directory I just had. Now here's the thing. How do I make this to be a GitHub capable repository? So I have to make Ice Cream e-commerce to be a Git repository. So let's do that. So we're going to go into the directory where our code is. And we're going to run git init. Why? That's a longer discussion I'm not going to have now, but the extra lesson on using GitHub is yours for the asking, right? If we get a couple of people who are interested, we'll set up a class to make that happen. Briefly, git init is going to put some special file markers in that directory. So when we do git push to get up to the GitHub server, then the Git protocol will have those references to know what it's supposed to do. All right, so it's done now. There's actually another directory there. It's a hidden directory. It has a special operating system flag to make it hidden. But now let's do git status. Oh, when this happens, you have to do a little extra workaround, which again, I'm going to do without talking about it, but we can have that lesson if people want it. Basically, I'm just going to copy and paste this command. It's just a security thing. Now let's try doing git status again. Now, what this is telling me is, and again, I'm not going to get into the Git lesson now in detail, but with Git, you have what's called a staging area, and then you have commit levels. And the reason why this is a very popular tool at work, if you're working in a project managed environment, and all of the jobs you want are in project management environment, right? All the big banks, government offices, all the big IT corporations, right? Microsoft, Oracle, all those guys, they are all very tightly project management driven. And Git, among the other things it does, it lets the project manager track the code work that everybody does each day and make sure it's synced up with the project plan. So anyway, I'm now going to go and do git add dot. That's like a wildcard. That means all the files. And see, the nice thing here is because I'm working in OS2 Warp, and it's an AI enhanced tool. It knows, right? It has sensibility. It knows the intention of what I want to do. So we're going to go and add all of our files into the staging area. Next, I need to go and do git push to make them a commit level. All right, now again, if I didn't have OS2 Warp, I would have to remember. I'd have to read a tutorial or something. But I am now going to make an initial commit, which means I'm going to take my files out of the staging area and make them into a committed level. That's like putting them in a box and locking the box. So if next month the project manager or the IT architect, whatever, anybody wants to come and see what the code looked like on September 29th at 9:42 p.m., they would they'd be able to revert back to that level and study it. All right, so let's do that. Now I have to push. Now look here, it's saying git push origin main. So if I go to my cloud repository, see, so far I just have the README because that's all I made. There's nothing else here. After I do push, all of my local files are going to be up there, which means I can give you the URL, which means you can, well, you could pull them down, right, if you had the GitHub client, or you could at least just study them online and copy and paste them out. So let's go and do that. Oh, I see. Yeah, there's one other step that I forgot here, so let's go and fix that. I need to tell it the repository of my URL up there, right? I forgot to do that. So let's go and get that. At the repository, you can go to here. And again, this in the DevOps class, we spend, a couple hours just on this stuff that I'm going over here now. And I'm just doing it to give you a little taster, like a little sampler, because I wanted to use GitHub to kick out the ice cream shop code anyway. So I'm going to go here to code, and I'm going to say get the URL. There it is. Let's copy. And then I'll paste it in here. And now I've made the connection. Now I'm ready to push, right? The push didn't work before because I didn't give it that URL. Oh, now here's the thing I talked to you about, the PAT token. So I need to, because I don't want just anybody to be able to push stuff up to my Git repo. We need some authentication. So let's go and use that PAT token that we made a minute ago. All right, so now let's see how this is going to work. This is what my Git command line is going to look like with my PAT token pasted in. And again, it's all in the documentation. Let's get this done because we want to get on with the ice cream shop. So now that I've given it my PAT token authentic key with my username and the URL to my GitHub repo, let's try this again. Oh, I see. Something else we have to do. You failed to push some refs. Updates were ejected. The remote contains... Ah! You know what that means now? Because I put a README there that I did not pull down. So GitHub is saying, whoa, hang on, slow down. We don't want to make breakage, right? We don't want to make disconnect between local and server. So that means it's telling me I have to do git pull. Why? Because if I look right now, I do not have the README in my local system. That existed only in the server. So let's try doing git pull. And that should only have one. Once again, Warp is doing all of the system admin work of GitHub that I would normally have to figure out how to do. And as programmers, we want to keep our mental attention set on the programming, not potentially go and spend an hour or two learning a bunch of Git as a support. So I know the college says don't use AI to do programming, but I say use it to help you out with the support stuff, stuff at work your support staff would be doing, and then keep your mental energy and attention focused just on the code writing. This is a very old code editor called Vim that they still use. So I'm going to press colon, write, and then quit. That should get me out of here. Whoops. Now let's see what I'm going to do on this. I forgot to enter a commit message, so I'll just say commit 1 or something, or initial commit. URL that I'm going to push out, and you can just get the code. I mean, you've already got the code. It was in the lab book, but if you want to play around with working with GitHub, this is something that's done kind of in the professional software dev environment. Now let's go and see, after we've done all of that, if GitHub if it has the code. So let's do refresh, and yeah, it worked. So now in GitHub, when I kick out this URL to you, you can get the code, right? You can get the code for models, and I think that was the line. Remember, I told you to add a couple of lines to a couple of the files in the models because I didn't initially give you the import for Mongoose. I wanted you to go and add that by yourself. So now that is the culmination of our work. So once again, if you don't want to work with GitHub, it's not on the course outline, right? So that was the second thing I asked you to do there. And it was basically for these 3 model files. That's where you had to make the changes. So I'm going to wrap up this video now and leave you with an open invitation that if any of you, and hopefully we can get at least a couple, because if it's just like one student in a session, it's don't have a good group energy. But if we could ideally get a few of you who want to learn this stuff more, we can have an office hours call to make it work. So you now have this code and all. Well, let's say I'm going to teach you one more thing as long as we're here. I'll teach you how you could suck it down using GitHub, right? So you don't have to copy the files one at a time. So I'm going to go back to OS Warp now, because now I know that all of my code is up here in my repo. There it is, the ice cream shop. So with this URL, let's see how we could go to another directory and pull it down. So I'm going to go back to OS Warp, and there is a blog article. I'll kick it out, right? If you want to see how to use OS Warp, I've written a blog about it. I'll share that out. Yeah. So anyway, I'll drop that in a notepad to send that out to you. So how do we use Git to pull the code down and inflate it into a fully functional, ready to go directory? Okay, so first of all, let's go back to Warp. And I'm going to make another directory here. Build, call it build from Git. So it should be good enough now. I can just say git clone. Git clone what? Well, git clone my my repo's URL, which you could go. This is a public directory. You could get it yourself, but I'll kick it out in the announcement I post about this. So you could say get the URL, the repository URL right there. So copy. And we could say git clone that. And that should make, in this directory build from Git, it should pull all that stuff down. Let's press enter and find out. So anyway, that proves that we could pull down, we could git pull the code from GitHub, and you can study it and work with it and run it. Any other questions, let me know. See you later. Bye.